Hoffman's Iron Clad Law. They use it in speaker building, but it applies just to subwoofers, period. And it's got three things you got to remember. Number one, efficiency, bass extension, small enclosure. Everybody wants those three things right there. Of course, they want to have a efficient subwoofer. They want a subwoofer that can play deep, bass extension. And they want to work in a small box, in a very relatively small box, so they can put a middle item inside their application, the vehicle. But with Hoffman's Iron Clad Law, you must remember one very thing in relation to those three things, and that is you only get to pick two. And this has been tried by the best subwoofer manufacturers and builders out there, and that's why they tell you it's an ironclad law, because it's basics physics, and it simply states that of those three tenets of a subwoofer, you can only have two. If I want a woofer that has bass extension and a small enclosure, it would not be efficient. Okay, well then I want a woofer that works in a small enclosure and it's efficient. It will not have bass extension. It won't play deep bass. Huh? Well then I want a subwoofer that plays deep bass and very efficient. It won't be in a small box. Of those three things, efficiency, plays deep bass, and small enclosure, you only get to pick two. Think about that when you're selecting the subwoofer. And I can tell you can name plenty of subwoofers and I'll tell you exactly how the principle applies. For instance, let's try the Sundown X8. Sundown X8 plays deep bass and it works in a small enclosure. It's got a sensitivity of 79. It's not efficient. It needs a lot of power to do that. This subwoofer right here, super efficient. Works in a relatively small enclosure. It's not gonna have deep bass. But Scar, Evo 8. Everybody screaming about Scar, Evo 8. It plays deep bass and is efficient. It doesn't work in a small enclosure. I think it's 1.15, 1.25, and you better not go under that if you want that deep bass extension. Hoffman's Ironclad Law. Go on in there and look it up. Go on in there and read about those three things. And then think about the subwoofers that you have used, and you will see only two principles apply. If it can work in a small box and plays deep bass, it won't be efficient. If it works in a small box and is very efficient, it won't have deep bass. You only get to pick two. So once you pick one, you only get to pick one other of the other two that's left. So, how do you apply our law into designing your system? Let's use it like this. Hoffman's Ironclad Law. I'm not going to upgrade my electrical. So since I'm just using this for example. You in a position where you say, I want a sound system. I understand Hoffman's Ironclad Laws, the three, but I don't have the money to buy the subwoofers and their components and upgrade my electrical. So I need an efficient subwoofer. And the only other factor that I want besides being efficient, I want to play deep bass. Now you got a big box. You understand? Or I'm going to upgrade my electrical. So I don't care if it's efficient. I just wanted to play deep bass and work in a small box. You gave up the efficiency. These ironclad laws cannot be changed. Remember, I tell you guys all the time, especially when you're working on your electrical, you're messing with electricity. DC converting to AC. And when you're talking about a subwoofer, it takes space to make bass. Bass is moved by the movement of this cone. Whoever moves the most air is going to be the loudest. Whoever moves the most air with enough force is going to be the loudest. It's physics. It's electricity and physics. Real simple. It's not what you think. It's not what you imagine. It's electricity and physics. Look up Hoffman's Iron Clad Law. Some of y'all say I have a lot of knowledge of that stuff. And all I do is a lot of reading. Being 30 years involved in this hobby, and it's an expensive hobby. I mean, think about all the subwoofers y'all know that's changed out in the channel just in this past year. Them 4.8 setups I keep changing out. $1,000 at a time. It's expensive. But that's how I gain knowledge on how to design my system and what I want, what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for. Okay? So I just want to bring that to your attention. Hoffman's Iron Clad Law. Read about it, study it, and see how you can apply it to your system. And see if you can figure out what subwoofer manufacturers are using two principles and which one they're excluding. I gave you one about the Sundown X8. Small enclosure, deep bass, not efficient. Facts. They take a shit ton of power to do the two things they can do. Work in a small enclosure and give you deep bass. They're not efficient. You feel what I'm saying? Oh, my kicker, L7, Q class. Deep bass, efficient. They do not work in a small box. You're going to have a relatively good sized box. You cannot put them in anything under 0.75. Whereas you can put an X8 in 0.5. But you can't put a kicker in 0.5. Not gonna work. Gotta be 0.75. They're efficient and they give you deep bass, but they do not work in a small enclosures compared to another 8-inch in that size. You understand? So research it. Some of you know it. Thank you for watching my channel. Please like, subscribe, share. Hit that button, hit that like button. It helps me. As my videos get popped to the feed. I'm growing. I'm at 2,000. I got 2,000 y'all. Pay attention to what I'm saying. That's just utterly amazing to me. I appreciate y'all. Some of y'all say I got all this knowledge and information. I just try to keep it real. I don't have that much more knowledge than you do. You just sit back and read and understand the basic systems. You take the time to design your system, and you'll be happy with the results. Peace.